first time doing it with this. So, all right. So this is being recorded. So let's cross our fingers. All right. So typically on onboard number 2, what we're doing is we're going over all the documents they're supposed to send to us. So all the employee paperwork, we're double checking to make sure they have that complete. We're also making sure that there's no missing files, all the information is correct, because after that, we send the information into payroll and all of that scenario. So that's what we do right away in the beginning for onboard number 2, is verify all paperwork, make sure we're scheduled for onboard number 3 like we just did with you guys, and then we're good to go. So onboard number 2 is a lot of review and testing on some of the stuff I taught you guys in the beginning, because what happens is when we're onboarding new staff, there's a lot of information being thrown at them at once, so I don't expect them to retain everything instantly. You know, it's kind of like with you guys, it's going to take reps to get everything in. You're not going to have everything perfect day one. So what this does is a good review of all the really important items that take place on the PT side to make sure they're at least in a good starting point, okay? And then we can correct any kind of errors or confusion as well. So the first thing we do is I'm going to go over progression regression testing. Okay? I just want to make sure the trainer or MXM has a really good understanding of the Super 6 and why it's important, in addition to testing on it. Okay. So I use the document as well as marking points, because I'm going to use the documents within it and test as well. So let's first go over the Super 6. What I'll do with you guys is typically on onboard number 2, I do it individually because every trainer is in a different spot, and I really want that one-on-one attention with them to make sure they're getting the movements down correctly, they're explaining it correctly, and it just wouldn't be possible to do that well with multiple people on the call. So with you guys, it's a little bit different, but typically with staff, onboard 1 is with everyone, onboard 2 is individual, onboard 3 is back with everyone again, okay? So the first thing we're going to look at is the Super 6. So real quick quiz, what is the Super 6?
Upper.
So yeah, Al, give me 2.
The push pull upper.
Yep. And then Brandon, give me 2.
Knee dominant and hip dominant.
Yep. And then Josh.
The core and core lateral.
Yeah, core anterior and core lateral.
I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, core. Yep. Okay, cool. And then when we do this, guys, just do the best you can. Try not to look at your notes if you have them. Just try to do it on the top of your head if you can. It's the best way to learn. So now let's go into each one in depth. So now that we have the Super 6 down, talk about why it's important, so that way in programming we know we're hitting all the muscle groups in the body. It's balanced, so we're not going to cause any more imbalance issues with training. So instead of having a bunch of push, we got to make sure we have enough pull in training, because in life we're always anterior dominant. So I go into that in depth a little bit with them once again, just to make sure. But for the movements, now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you guys a scenario. So Al, I'm going to have you do 2, Brandon 2, and Josh 2. Okay. So for upper push, Al, when it comes to those, give me an upper push for a beginner, like someone who's just starting with exercise. What would you give them?
You could do like a push up, or like a boulder ball push up off the wall with the boulder ball.
Sure. Yep. Okay, cool. And then someone who's more advanced, what would be an upper push?
Are we talking all functional training?
Everything's functional in my opinion, but yeah, like no machines.
They can do like a barbell chest press or a dumbbell chest press.
Okay, yep, perfect. Okay, and then let's go upper pull, Al. Give me a beginner upper pull.
They can do like a resistance band row.
Sure.
Knee. If they want to get, more advanced, they can do like an upright row with the dumbbell.
Okay, sure. That'll take a little bit more coordination. All right, let's do Brandon. I think you said knee dominant, hip dominant, right?
Yep.
All right, give me a beginner knee dominant.
So a beginner knee dominant would just be like a simple lunge, like without any weight or anything, just a body weight.
Sorry, someone's vacuuming. It's hard. Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah. So knee dominant would be just like a simple lunge. Can you not hear me?
It's just a little bit louder. Sorry.
So just like a simple lunge for knee dominant.
Oh, well, it depends. Well, first, it depends on the lunge, like what kind of lunge you're doing will change whether it's a knee dominant or hip dominant. So, for example,
Yeah.
an in-place, like stationary lunge, where you go back to the starting point, that's actually a knee dominant movement. If it's a walking lunge, it's a hip dominant. So it really just depends on how the movement's completed. So, and also lunges are a lot more advanced than like let's say a squat would be. So
Okay.
it's a
Yeah.
lot more coordination and everything. So let's go with a beginner knee dominant. What would you have them do?
So just a body weight squat.
Okay, cool. And then how about something more advanced for a knee dominant?
Yeah, like you said, just like a standing lunge, and then you can add weight.
Perfect. Okay. All right, let's do hip dominant. What would you do for a beginner hip dominant?
Like maybe like a glute bridge.
Oh, perfect. Yep, love that one. Okay. And then something more advanced for hip dominant?
Like a deadlift.
Oh, sure. Okay, cool. Perfect. Nice job, man. All right, Josh, we got core anterior for you. Give me a beginner core anterior.
Probably just like a regular crunch.
Okay, sure, you could get away with that. Yep. And then something more advanced.
Plank or plank on a ball.
Sure, yep, plank on a ball. Okay, cool. Let's go core lateral now. Give me a beginner core lateral.
Probably just like I don't know what you guys call it, but like a side bend with some weight.
Okay. Quick note on that one, just a side note for you guys. Like, are you talking like the side bend where they got the weight and they're doing this thing?
Yeah.
I would recommend
Pretty pointless, but
doing that one. It actually puts a lot of stress on the spine in a position it shouldn't be in. So I would recommend not giving that exercise to people. We're kind of taking out of exercises now because they're seeing the issues with spine. So let's do a more, like, what's a good beginner's core lateral? What do you think, like a very beginner?
Kind of drawing a blank.
That's right, man. So you could do like a modified side bridge. So like their knees are on the ground and they're doing a side plank that way. Or you
Yeah,
could
I mean that's what I was thinking for, like more advanced was like a side plank.
if you did a full side plank, it could be, depends on the person. But if you did a modified side plank, that's like progression 1 to a side plank. It's like the first phase to doing a plank on the side. So that would be a beginner. And then more advanced, you could do like hip dips. You could do like the star position, side version of it, all that kind of stuff. So numerous ways to advance movements. But yeah, okay, cool. So now you guys have a really good overview of that. So when you guys are like working with trainers and stuff like that, you guys are going to have to know that stuff to make sure everyone's on the same page and you have a good understanding of progression regression. That's really important, especially for people that are doing team training, because they have a small group setting where they're going to have to take a group of people, perform an exercise, and not every single person is going to be on the same page. So at the top of their head, they're going to need to be able to give progression regression based on that movement. So when you guys are in the club, just kind of watch that, kind of see how it's going with the progression regression suggestions that the trainers are giving. But most of the time, they're pretty good. So
Could you give more examples of like the knee and hip dominant
sure,
exercises?
sure, like some beginner stuff and some advanced stuff.
Yeah.
Sure. So like a beginner knee dominant would be a good one. Would be like a TRX squat. It's one of my favorites because it gives someone support and they're able to get down and feel the range of motion they should in a squat, but feel safe, like they're not going to fall over. That's one of my favorite ones to go to. Another good one would be stability ball wall squat. That would be another great beginner phase for like getting into a squat. Or even going to like a bench squat, having them touch the bench and come back up. That would be another beginner. More advanced knee dominant would you kind of look at that in-place lunge. That would be a definitely more advanced knee dominant. Or you could do like looking at like a pistol squat, things like that. So And then as far as hip dominant, you guys did pretty good there. Like my favorite one for starting is that glute bridge that you mentioned. That's a very good starting phase because most people have issues even activating glute. So good phase there. And then to progress that one, you can do single leg. I could start teaching them like RDLs so they get that hip hinge down, things of that nature. So cool. Good question though. Thank you. All right. So you guys feel confident there?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Next. Oh, just so you guys know too, I meet with them on onboard number 2 a little bit more in depth with the systems they have at their facility. So like if they got fit metrics, onboard number 2, I'm gonna go much more in depth with them on it. They also will be at the club more in depth training too for about an hour, just getting them used to the manual part, like putting on the heart rate belt, syncing it, all that kind of stuff, okay? MXM kind of helps with that too. So if that's at your club and you want to get some more in-depth training on this, we could probably set that up for you guys, okay? Because I don't know what you've been taught on that side yet. So same thing with in-body. Like, for example, I was in Waupun yesterday taking a new trainer through this. So I educated her on onboard number 2, the things we want to talk about. And then I met her at the club before she started to actually take her on it physically, show her how it's done, and then review the discussion on in-body sheet. So that would be another part of the process we go over for onboard number 2, okay? All right, so new client process, we also review this. So on day 1, what should as of right now, what should a trainer do on day 1 with their client?
Fit test?
Yep, dynamic warm-up and fit test, correct, yep. So dynamic warm-up first, teach them that, and then go into the fit test. Number 2, what do we do on day number 2?
The dynamic warm-up again.
Yep.
And then you run them through like a 20-minute workout, 30-minute workout.
Yep, and then what else is involved?
And then you do like stretching or just some kind of
Cool down.
yeah, just some kind of stretching after.
Yep, so day 2,
rolling or whatever.
I'm going to try to do it without showing day 3. I can't do it without showing day 3, but day 2 is going to be review the goal sheet. So you guys kind of talked about the goals in the beginning a little bit from the MXM on the phone. But after that, we're going to do a quick review of what our goals are. Like here, this is why we're doing these exercises kind of thing. Give them an intro to that warm-up again because I definitely did not have it down by then. And then more into a workout. And then onboard number 3, what are we doing? Or excuse me, day number 3 for their client.
Hopefully they've done the dynamic warm-up on their own.
Probably not yet. What are the 3 steps for day 3? You guys remember that one? So you're going to review dynamic warm-up again, okay? Because odds are they definitely don't have it down yet or memorized. They're also going to go into more of a full workout now. And then they're also at the end 5 minutes of recovery. So teaching them foam rolling, stretches, whatever they feel is necessary after watching them work out and see their mobility issues. So, and then day 4, then you're going to continue the review dynamic warm-up until they get it down and just do the workout as well. If they get the workout down and the warm-up down and they handle it very well mechanically, then our goal is to get them to do that warm-up prior to the session. And then those workouts are all 30 minutes of intense workout. So the client's ready to go before the session. So make sure you guys get that down because if you guys are covering the MXM role, you should know what's expected of your trainers there as far as what's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, okay? Now heads up, guys, this is going to change here very soon when we do a January rollout. Kyle and I have a new process that we're going to start for trainers for their session number 1, okay? We're actually going to make it an hour session to make sure they get everything they need into the session because there's so much to go over when they first start that it's just so hard to get all that stuff done in 30 minutes spread out. So this will kind of compile everything in one session, get all that done, and then they can get to working out faster. So that is coming. So trainers aren't doing that yet. Okay, they don't even know about it yet. So just keep that under wraps. Don't say anything. but I do want you guys to know that that process is changing very soon. Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. When you're looking at new clients and a trainer gets a new client, how fast should they, or what's their time limit on getting back to that email and calling that client?
Like 48 hours? Is that?
Yep, they need to contact that person within 48 hours of receiving that email. Perfect. With the transfer client, when we have a transfer in the system, who is responsible for taking care of all the back end work as far as contacting the client, letting them know who the new trainer is and what's going to happen?
The MXM.
Yep. And then who schedules the first session?
MXM.
The MXM?
For a transfer client. Oh, we got a connection issue. Lost you for a second. You guys there?
Be the trainer?
Oh, perfect. Yep. So, brand new client, MXM tries to schedule that first session for them. With the transfer client, the trainer is going to schedule that session with them because they may have 1 or 2 sessions left with their previous trainer that they got to get in. So that just keeps everything smooth. Okay, cool. All right. Next. Training folders. We're going to review that. So when there's a brand new folder, MXM makes that folder, throws the FC sheet in there. What should the folder look like when the trainer gets it, when they build it themselves, when they take care of all the documents? What's on the inside cover? What should the trainer be writing on that inside cover? Anybody remember? Sorry, guys, we got a bad connection. It's going to be the training schedule, okay? So on that inside cover of the folder is the training schedule. So is it 3 times a week? Is it twice a week? Because that can change over time. So maybe after 12 months, they go down to once a week. Okay, so make sure they got that in there because it's going to be impossible for that trainer to remember with all their clients how often each one's training every time. All right. What is the first page they see when they open up that folder? What should be the first document in there when you guys open up a trainer folder? It should be the goal sheet, right? So the first page should be the goal sheet. So we want a constant reminder of why they're here and why they're doing this. Okay, what's the second sheet?
Fit test.
Yep, should be the fit test. Perfect. The third sheet in the folder.
FC.
Yep, and then the last part of the folder, what's included in the back end of the folder?
Is that just where you have like the extra notes and the scheduling?
It's where the workouts go. So the workouts are doing on their own, things of that nature. Anything they log with the trainer, that's printed off. So when we do the training next on onboard number 3 for the apps, I'll talk to you about printing and workouts more in detail, okay? All right, make sure you guys review this stuff because you guys are going to have to know it, okay? Especially if you're covering a DNA meeting. If you're covering MXM and you got to do a DNA meeting, you got to be able to know what you're critiquing on. All right, goal sheet. So I'm going to give you guys a scenario. You guys are going to take one of the 3 goals. So since we're doing this together, I got 3 of you. What I normally do in the scenario is I give a trainer a scenario as far as a client goes, and it's a very real scenario. It's nothing crazy. What I do here is I just want to make sure we can set long-term realistic goals that are measurable, and then also set short-term goals that are realistic and measurable. Okay, we just want to make sure we're on a good page with setting goals and making sure they're appropriate for the client. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a scenario here, and each one of you is going to give me their long-term goal. Yep, I know we have a slow connection. Sorry, guys, I don't know why the issue's so bad here in Oregon today. Anyways, top right corner here. These are the long-term goals in review, okay? So remember that long-term performance goal, that is going to be their primary goal. Why are they here? Is it body comp improvement? Is it strength? Is it endurance? What is their number 1 goal? Nutrition goal, remember we're going to keep that simple. as trainers, you can't go in depth on what you give them. So we just got to help them make good choices overall. So you guys decide based on your clientele what that would be. And then the third one is a miscellaneous goal. Okay, so that's going to be determined on what information was given to you from the MXM. Okay, there's usually 3 things we want working on the entire time. So think of the long-term goals here are the new them. Okay, when you're having that new you talk, that's what that is right there. So a trainer can take your notes and transfer it right to this sheet. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys a scenario, and I'll give you guys which ones you're gonna answer. So you guys have a middle-aged male. Okay, let's say he's 54. Okay, and he's looking to improve body composition. Okay, so he wants to lower his body fat. What he's looking at is that he has a real issue with soda. Okay, so he probably has like 5 sodas a day, and he knows that's an issue. Also, no medications to worry about, no injuries to worry about, so let's keep that out of the equation. Also, he never gets to the gym. Okay, that's the reason why he hired the trainer. Okay, he knows he's not getting on his own, so he needs someone there, a professional, to help him make sure he gets in, keep him accountable. Okay, given that kind of information, what kind of goals are you going to set long term for them? And his body fat, let's say you did a scan on him. Let's say he's currently at 36% body fat. Okay. Now, given that information, I'm going to have you guys set some long-term goals for me as a member. Okay. So Al, I'm going to have you take the long-term performance goal. What is it, and what would you set for them? And I just want to, like, when we're talking about his goal for composition as well, we're talking about look good, feel good, nothing crazy. Just a good, healthy, ideal zone for that person.
Yeah, so I would explain to him that his current body fat percentage would have that healthy zone. So our long-term goal to start would completely change his entire body.
Sorry, I got a lot of stuff going on at this point. I'm just trying to speak up a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Now I can a little bit better. Yep.
Okay. I would let him know that his body fat percentage is out of the healthy zone, and a good long-term goal would be to get him at about 26 to 27% body fat, so he's healthy.
Perfect.
And 10% body fat can completely change his body composition and have him looking better aesthetically and feeling better. So.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, beautiful, man. You said a very realistic number. It's in that healthy zone of where he should be for his age, and you gave him something to shoot for. So that's what we want to check trainers are doing. They're not just saying, oh, look good, feel better. They're actually giving them something to aim for, and it's realistic. So perfect. Nice job. All right, Brandon, I'm going to have you take the nutritional goal. Based on the information I gave you, what do you think is realistic on what we should do? You guys there? Fucking club.
I can't.
Sorry guys, you're back now. Sorry. I don't know what the hell is going on with the internet here. It's driving me nuts. Sorry. All right, Brandon, long-term nutritional goal.
Yeah, so you said that he had a problem with soda, so we're going to try to cut out soda. For the long-term goal, the reason being is it's there's a lot of sugar in that soda, so we want to lower your sugar and also increase your water intake.
Okay, cool. So did you say eliminate it?
I mean, for the long term, yeah.
Okay. I just want to reiterate what you said. So now that's going to depend on the client, right?
Not right away, but for long term, yeah, that would be ideal.
Okay, cool. So, and when you're talking about general population, that might work, it might not, right? So a lot of times with the general pop, they're not going to be able to absolutely eliminate stuff with nutrition. So just a good tip for you guys is when you're looking at nutrition, try not to eliminate. We want to minimize and lower, but typically anytime we eliminate something from general population, they're going to break eventually. They're human, right? So, and then they're going to probably go back in tenfold if we take it away. Okay. Now, some people might be able to do it, right? Some people might be able to work their way out of it and just never do it again. But for the vast majority of general population, They're not built that way. You know, they enjoyed it for some reason, so they're going to have a little bit of it somehow, some way, right? So just take that into consideration with the clients. Maybe a long-term goal that's more realistic to start would maybe be like 1 or 2 a week, maybe, and then maybe eliminate down the road. But either way, you totally could, Brandon. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying be aware of that because it could happen. Okay. All right, cool. So let's go. Let's just say we did 1 to 2 just to be safe, okay? For long term. All right, Joshua, let's go with miscellaneous goal. Based on information, what do you think we should put there?
Just get him into the habit of making it in the gym consistently so he can come a couple times a week.
Perfect. So when you say come to the gym consistently, what are we aiming for?
I think usually the goal is 3 times a week.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so a minimum of 3 times a week. Yeah, so if you want to set that as their long-term goal, they can definitely see good results as long as they get in 3 times a week and have good workouts. So I think that's more than fair to set, so good job. Okay, cool. Now you guys sometimes can go more with that goal depending on the person once again. Maybe sometimes you get away with 4, something like that, but odds are your safest bet is 3 times a week. As you guys know, when you're having that conversation, you go off the ACSM guidelines of 3 times a week minimum to see results. So that was perfect. Nice job, Josh. All right, cool. So now that we have the long-term goals set, now we got to help set some short-term goals, okay, that are realistic. So when we say short-term goals, that's monthly testing. And how often do we test, guys? When are the trainers testing every month?
First week.
Yep, perfect. The first week of every month is when trainers test. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to go over the performance goal with you, Al. So
I can't hear you, Chad.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. Is it better now?
Kind of cutting in and out.
Any better now?
A little bit.
A little bit? Sorry, guys. I don't know why Oregon's giving me hell right now, but we'll do the best we can. So for your performance goal, Al, you set the marker for, what was his long-term performance goal?
To get to 26 to 27% body fat from 36, I think you said it was.
Okay, cool. So current data, he was at 36. We're going to write that down there, okay? And then since he's at 36, what would you set for a realistic short-term goal?
If I knew how long is his timeline?
Well, if you're trying to get him from 25%, what do you think is, to 25%, what do you think is realistic per month to complete with body fat loss?
I'd probably say no more than 1% of body fat, probably.
Sure. A good rule of thumb for you guys is 1 to 2%. So someone could achieve that, in a healthy standard. So a good standard for once a month testing is 1 to 2% body fat. That's realistic, and it's good results too.
Yeah.
So kind of use that as a good marker for you guys.
Okay, so I would then say that first month we're going to try to shoot for, because you're probably going to have more results. Shoot for 2% the first month because I know it'll taper off as time goes on. Okay, cool. Yep, good job, Al. You talked about kind of like how it tapers down a little bit as you go. You're not always going to get 2% every time. So they should know that too, that it's not going to be realistic to hit that 2% every time. So good job. Perfect. Love it. All right, Brandon, let's go over the nutrition goal. So I got 5 sodas a day, man. What do you think is realistic in a month?
So let's say instead of 5 sodas a day, let's cut it down to about 3 to begin with in this first month. So take it down 2 sodas a day.
Awesome.
So just try hit 3 a day.
Perfect. Love it. Very realistic. And you didn't eliminate, so that's great. All right.
Yep.
Miscellaneous goal, Josh. We're talking about consistency. So he's currently at 0 a day. What do you think his short-term goal should be?
Well, if he's going to do personal training, I would say try to shoot for him coming in one day on his own.
So total number. How many times a week do you want him working out for short-term goal?
Well, like on his own or with the trainer or?
Together. Workouts per week. Because you set a long-term goal of 3 times a week.
On his own. I thought the long-term goal would be like 3 times a week on his own that he can sustain.
So did you recommend 4 times a week then, or what?
No, just I guess it would depend on how many times he's working with a trainer. Like if he's working with a trainer once a week, I'd probably want him to come in once a week on his own. If he's working with a trainer twice, I'd still probably want him to try to make it in 1 day a week.
Okay, so let's look at.
Because the goal would be for him to make it in on his own forever 3 times a week. So I figure getting him on his own once a week.
So what we want to look at is long term. We said 3 times a week is a realistic goal, right? I don't know. Chris just hopped on and all hell just broke loose. Hey, Chris, can you mute?
I can't hear you guys. I don't know what's going on. But.
Yeah, I don't know. Chris hopped on and started echoing and stuff. All right, anyways, I think we're better now. All right, so long-term miscellaneous goal. So what we're looking at there is we set a minimum of 3 times a week. So he was at 0, okay? And we set for 3 times a week. We think that's fair, right? So regardless of times with trainer or whatever, we're looking at a minimum of 3 times a week of getting his butt into the gym to see some results, right? Because the trainer is going to guide them, or he should be attending team training as well when they sign up. So when we're looking at this, what would you set for a short-term goal? Let's say the long-term goal was 3 times a week. How often should he get to the gym, regardless if it's trainer or on his own? Based on ACSM guidelines, Josh.
Probably 2 times a week starting out.
So we want a minimum. It's a trick question. So we want a minimum of 3 times a week, right? So we have in that talk on the consult, like we need you to come in at least 3 days a week to see see results at all, right? So what we want to do is set that standard right away. Okay, it's very realistic. We're only asking 3 hours out of their week to see some results. So we would set that short-term goal as 3 times a week for sure. Okay. All right, perfect. And then that area is extra notes. So if there's different things you want to talk about, as far as giving them extra homework, things like that, we'll be good to go there. All right, perfect. So now we got our short-term goals set. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward into going into that testing. So we're going to pretend we worked out a month together. We got our first week of the month coming up, and now we just did our testing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys some data, and I want you to assess it and reset a new goal. Okay, what's your next short-term goal? Because every single month we want our trainers setting that next goal. So they're always working on 3 goals at a time. Okay. So Al, you're gonna have it easy here, man. So we got performance goal is body comp. Test 1 was let's say 36, and we got him down to, or excuse me, he was 38, and we got him down to 36. Change was -2%. He completed the goal. What are you gonna do for his next short-term goal?
To keep him working hard and keep him motivated, I'm gonna stay with that same 2%.
Okay.
The psyche where it needs to be, so he's not thinking that, hey, it's gonna slow down every time from now. As we get to that point, I'll explain, hey, your body composition is not gonna always change that 2%, but since he's killed the first month, let's keep that motivation going.
Cool. All right, so we're gonna set the target for 34%. Perfect. I think that's fair still. All right, nutrition. Here we go, Brandon. So we got 5 sodas was test 1. Test 2, here's what happened. This is very real, too. This happens a lot. So let's say the first 2 weeks, I hit your goal. It was 3 times a week. Then the last 2 weeks, I went to like 4 a day. I didn't hit the 5, but I definitely backtracked a little bit, okay? Given that information, what would you do in that scenario?
So I would say that I think 3 times a week is still a pretty good goal. So, I mean, I think I would stay with the 3 times a week.
Okay, perfect. And then what else do we want to do in that scenario?
Not sure.
It's all right. So we want to find out why they went back, right? So if we reset that goal, it's not really changing anything, right? Same thing might happen. So we want to figure out, why did that person go back to 4 instead of 3? So was it maybe a sweet tooth? Maybe it was the sweetness he was missing. Or maybe it was the carbonation he was missing. Something was missing in his life that he needed. So he went back to it. So then the job as a trainer is to figure that out. Okay, why did you go back? If it was sweetness, well, maybe we find a lower calorie sweet drink, okay? Or if it's the carbonation, maybe we try some carbonated water, okay, to replace that carbonation feel, something like that. So we want to reset the goal. You did a perfect job of that. It's still a very realistic goal. Let's reset that goal and do it. But now we also want to make a note about what are we going to do to help replace that issue. So in the goal, we would say 3 times a week plus carbonated soda 2 times, or whatever it is, right? So we want to make a note of what we're tackling now instead of before. So how did we improve on this? All right, cool. Good job, man. All right, Josh, miscellaneous goal here was consistency. So test 1, I was at 0. I was never coming in. Test 2, I nailed it. I came in 3 times every single week. What are you going to do with that goal next?
Probably just continue it on.
Okay. So what do you mean by that?
Just make sure you keep getting 3 days.
Okay. So is there anything else you want to do in addition to that?
Well, I mean, I would, like last time I said I wanted to try to get 1 day on the zone.
Okay. So yeah, there's a couple options we got here. So when they hit a goal, we always want to make sure that they're going in and setting another goal. Okay. So if they complete a goal, they should have another goal set. So there's a couple options we could go here. Option 1 was that you can increase it to 4 times a week. Okay. So maybe that's an option for the client. So that's going to increase their volume and output and get greater results. Okay. If let's say they're in a scenario where they're like, you know what, I just cannot get in 4 times a week. What could we do for this next goal? So there's another option of you could have them say, all right, 3 times a week at the gym, 1 at the house. Okay, so maybe it's because of kids they can't get to the gym 4 times, so maybe they could do something at the house. Okay, so maybe we give them a homework to do at home. If that doesn't work, another option is we could say, okay, well, 3 times a week we're still seeing awesome results. Let's keep that, but let's tackle another goal of yours. Those push-ups you wanted to be able to do, let's tackle that. Or maybe that 5K you wanted to do, let's tackle that. Always set 3 different goals for the client. So they always have something they're aiming for in 3 different assets of their life. Okay? Makes sense? Awesome, cool. Because if we get in a position where okay, we hit our goal, let's just coast, that totally lowers our retention of clients, right? So if they think they're done, why would they continue, So we are never done. I'm never done with goals. You're never done with goals. So why would a client be done with goals? So we always want to keep that process moving. All right, cool. Pretty good job, guys. All right, next, let's go over fit testing, okay? So what we do in this area is I review with them really quick what we're looking for here. So what's the value of the fit test, guys? Why do we do this?
Because it just tracks progress over time.
Yep. And then any other ideas? So if I'm a member and I come up to you, I'm your client, and I'm like, hey guys, I don't know why we do this fit test. Why are we doing it? What's the point? I don't feel like testing. I just want to work out.
It shows us where you started and where you're going, so it helps you keep your goals in line, and also helps us, have talking points to say, hey, maybe we need to readjust our exercise, or maybe we need to readjust our programming so you can maintain on the path towards your goal.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, number 1, day 1, it's looking at benchmarks, right? Where are they? You guys are looking at any kind of mobility issues, strength issues, things like that. So it's a huge informational piece on day 1. Then as I continue to test, it's performance markers. How are we improving? Where do we still got to go? Where are we weak? Things of that nature. So it's a constant marker of where they started and where they're going to be and where they still got to go. So yeah, okay, cool. All right, so left side, once again in review, is more of a beginner option. The right side is intermediate. So remember, you guys can go to either side. Just really depends on what the client's capable of. Okay, so if they have greater lower extremity strength, they can do a goblet squat, but if they're weak in upper body, you can go to the left side and do an incline push-up, okay? They're just generalized ideas, so we keep the testing streamlined. So if there is a transfer, it's very easy to transfer. A trainer's not picking up a document and saying, what the heck, where's all the testing, okay? They know exactly what was being done. So when we're looking at this, guys, we're going to go through each movement, okay? I'll just go down the order with you guys. You guys will tackle one at a time. When we're doing this, what I want you to do is do your best to demonstrate and explain it to me like I'm a member, okay? So I have no idea what this is, how to do it, so I want you to explain to me how to do the movement, how does the test work, and then what is it testing, okay? So on the web, it's a little bit more difficult, but we still managed to make it work, okay? So I know you guys don't have a stability ball right in front of you, so when you guys do these movements, just demonstrate the best you can and explain it to me like I'm a member, okay? So no technical terms. Don't tell me we're, hitting your vastus laterals here, things like that, okay? We want to actually hear what you would say to a member. So let's go with squat variation. Al, why don't you tackle this one, buddy? So let's do a stability ball wall squat. Go through the movement, demonstrate, explain, and then also tell me how we do the test.
So, if I get up, you won't be able to hear me because my audio is. I'll just do it up here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to do it here.
You're doing pretty good.
All right.
Let's do this. Yep.
Yeah, so what we're going to do here is a stability ball wall squat. So what we're going to do, we have the stability ball behind us. We're going to get in squat position when our feet shoulder width apart, the primary of our weight in our heels. We are going to target our glutes and our quads. So we're going to sit down into a squat position using the stability ball as kind of the anchor to kind of help us drop down to that squat position. Then we're going to hold this position for, I don't know how long, actually, how we do for the test. I'm guessing a minute.
You're rep testing. So you're counting how many reps they get in 6 seconds. Yep.
How many reps? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our form right, weight in our heels, sit down through our butt, and also targeting our quads. We want to keep our shoulders back, our head and neck nice and neutral, and we're just going to sit down and try to get as many reps as we can in 60 seconds.
Okay.
I really can't do it in here with no ball or no wall. So
that's all right, man. No, it's a good explanation. Good job. Perfect. So you're talking about the major points of what they got to watch for when they do the movement, and like normally, obviously, you would demonstrate it with the ball at the facility there. So good job, man. And then very basic guideline. What is this testing? Why does this matter for the member?
It's just so we know where they are starting at, so we can set the appropriate, I guess, exercise and threshold in terms of intensity for them.
Yep, and it's testing their leg strength, right? So if they ask you, what is this doing? It's testing their leg strength. Yep. Cool, perfect. All right, and then what counts as a good rep there, Al? Like, what are we looking for mechanic-wise?
Looking to get about 90 degrees in the knee bend.
Yep, and then all the way back up. Yep, so when you guys are counting the reps on these tests, they got to be good reps, right? So then we would record the amount of reps they got in 6 seconds here that were good reps. Okay. Now they can rest in an up position if they need to. That's not a big deal. We're just seeing how many they can get in that timeline. Okay. All right, cool. So also when I do this stuff with trainers when I'm onboarding in MXMs, we go over common issues we see in these areas, so you guys are aware. So if you guys tackle this when you're at the facility, you know how to correct these issues when you see it, because they're very common issues. So a big one for the wall squat there is if their heels are coming up when they squat. Why do you think that is?
They don't have enough flexibility.
Yeah, yep, specifically where?
Is it plantar?
Yeah, well, yeah, ankle mobility, right? Yep. Yeah. So they're having issues there. So one quick thing you can do to address that right away is take a couple plates underneath their heel. And then what happens is you elevate that heel. Now they have to push to the heel still, and their front of their foot's on the floor. They have full impact on contact to ground and plate. And now they actually can get good full range of motion, because what was limiting them was just strictly ankle mobility. Okay, so that really helps with that. It's kind of cool when you do it with a client. I used to do it with athletes all the time that were super tight there, and then they could actually get a good range of motion when they squat, because all that was limiting was the ankle mobility. Okay, and then you just do stretches and stuff to work on that mobility issue. Also, over time, when they continue to squat with those plates under there, it gets better. Okay, so you can lower and lower that elevation you give on that heel over time as well. Okay, so a quick trick there, you guys can start doing if you see that. Also, another major one is when they're squatting. Let me see if I can, in this tiny room here in Oregon, I can do this for you guys. So what's happening is when they squat, let me see if you guys see this. Oops, hold on.
Their knees are coming in.
Inward knees.
Okay, cool. Yep. So knees were coming in, right? Very common issue. It's called valgus tendency. So do you guys know why that's happening typically?
The hip mobility.
Yeah, there's an imbalance somewhere. So number one, your first thing you'd want to do is when you see that is correct mechanics first. So they might be doing it just because they don't know how to squat properly. So sometimes if you just address mechanics and say, hey, watch your knees, try to keep them in line, sometimes it'll fix it right then and there. And it was just a mechanical issue. If it's not just a mechanical issue and it's a imbalance, muscle imbalance issue, what that is your abductors are not as strong as your adductors. Okay, so they have weak abductors, which is very common for general population because they sit all day and just walk forward, right? So their posterior is super. So in order to strengthen that, you're going to want to do some glute activation work, maybe some lateral band work that hits the gluteus medius, doing squats with band around the knee. That kind of stuff can really help that area and get them better, okay? So valgus tendency is very common in untrained individuals, but also even athletes that are really tall and imbalanced. So you see a ton in basketball players and very common in females as well, okay? They have that hip imbalance. So watch for that. That's a huge factor you guys want to watch when you guys are squatting. So in your notes, if you see that when you're doing a test, you're going to want to note valgus tendency, so you know you got to fix that, right? Cool. All right, and then for the goblet squat, the only thing I want to talk about there, when they're doing the goblet squat, we want to make sure that that dumbbell is close to the body when they do it. Okay, we don't want it sitting out here. We want it nice and tight to the body when they squat. Okay, and then once again, we just count reps there. Okay. Any questions on squat, guys? No? Okay, cool. All right, push-up variation. Brandon, I'm going to have you take this one, buddy. Explain to me the best you can incline push-up. I know it's going to be impossible for you to really demonstrate right now, but just do the best you can. Yeah, just do the best you can.
All right, so we're gonna do an incline push-up. This is gonna be like a normal push-up, but we're gonna do it on either a bench or on the Smith machine bar. The reason we do this is because it's an elevated push-up and it's a little easier. What this is gonna target is your chest. So when you do this, you're gonna have your arms about shoulder width apart, in line with your chest. I feel super awkward right now.
Oh, you're doing good.
You
Yeah.
have your shoulders back and your back tight. So if I was to put my hand in your back, it would be a nice tight there. And you're gonna come down and then you're gonna push with your chest. You're gonna keep your core tight and you're gonna keep your back in line when you do this.
Awesome, beautiful. Yep, you hit on all the. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and then some common mistakes we see here is either hand position is either in or too far out, and the back is rounded, and we want to fix those.
Beautiful. You hit the two common points that are very common, that issues that we see with that. Nice job. It's the elbows flaring out and the hip coming up. So way to address that right away too. And you hit everything on the head. So good job. Yep. All right. And then weighted push up. The only thing I want to say there is make sure we put that weight towards the upper to mid back. It's not on the low back. Okay. So make sure we're not putting that load on that low back area. All right. Cool. Nice job, man.
Wait, can you repeat that for the weighted one?
What's that?
Can you repeat that, what you just said for the weighted push-up?
Oh, sure. If you're putting a plate on the back, just make sure it's on the upper to mid, in between the shoulder blades, where you put the load.
Okay.
Don't put it on the low back area or the hips, because that'll strain the low back. So.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Pull-up variation. Josh, explain to me inverted row.
So that probably do on a Smith machine because it's a lot more stable.
Cool.
And it's like a bar. With that, you'll just have to set the height depending on kind of how strong they are. And with that, they'll go a little wider than shoulder width with their hands on the bar.
Okay.
And basically just trying to pull their body up to the bar.
Okay. And then what are the things we want to watch for when they do this movement?
Make sure their butt's not like dipping way down.
Yep. And then what's another really major point we want to watch for?
Like if they're swinging or anything like that, I don't know.
Sure. Also watch the elbows. So they're going to want to flare like they do that push-up where the elbows come out if they're not familiar with the movement. So make sure they have it at 45 degrees when they do that movement, just like a push-up, right? So you want to keep that safe for the shoulder and everything. All right, cool. Then when we do it, just remember the reps. What we're looking for there is that they're coming all the way down, and then they pull all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, okay? While they keep that core tight. Let them know they got to keep that butt up. If the butt dips too long, you guys got to stop the test because that is a max test. We're going to see how many they can do with good form, okay? All right, awesome.
Can you do like an assisted pull-up instead of that inverted row?
Sure, absolutely. Yep. If they're not comfortable with inverted row or you don't want to do it, assisted pull-up is another good option. Yep, for sure. All right, and then pull-ups. The biggest thing I want to talk about there is just make sure that they're doing a vertical pull when they do their pull-up. Okay. So a lot of times people will like pull this way, turn it more into kind of like a horizontal. We want to make sure they're here to here. Let me go down a little bit for you guys. So we're here to here. Those elbows are coming down, a straight vertical pull. Okay. Kind of like when you see lat pull down. The reason we don't do lat pull down right away is because most people don't do it right. What happens is they always try to turn that vertical pull into a horizontal. You'll see people on the lat pull down all the time where they're here and they're swinging way back, right? You see the bros do that all the time, right? They're here and they're here, right? So they turn that to a horizontal. And that's technically should be a vertical pull. They should be here to here, okay? But watch for that kind of stuff on pull-up variations like that. All right, cool.
And I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
On the pull-up, do you want their hands like that, or like a bicep pull-up?
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about grip?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can. The safest bet is have thumb around the handle, okay? Because most people like that you're working with won't be able to do the hook grip. That'll hurt, and you know what I mean? So they'll just have the thumb around it, full hand. I mean, if their thumb's up on the side too, that's fine. But technically, just like a bench, we want that thumb underneath it to make sure they're fully gripped. Yep. Good question, though. All right. Let's go into the front plank variations. So let's hit the top again, Al. Walk me through the elbow plank here. Sorry, I interrupted, buddy. Pull-up variation, what are we testing there?
Wait, can you say it again? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, guys. I forgot to ask. The pull-up test, our pull variation, what are we testing there? So if I remember, ask what's that testing? What are we testing?
Back strength?
Yeah, back strength. Cool. Keep it simple. Love it. Good job. All right, plank variation. Sorry, Al. Go ahead.
So the plank, we're gonna, work our core here. So really try to, activate our midsection. So what you want to do with this, use your body as straight as a board. So you're gonna have your elbows in. You can do open hand, whatever you feel more comfortable with. For your feet, you want to keep your toes extended so you want to straight down to be your front bit. You want to keep your back straight and try to keep your hips up. So you don't want sorry, not the hips completely up, but try to keep your hips neutral. You don't want it bending too far down or your butt too far in the air. And the idea is to see how long you can hold this plank. Our goal is shooting for a minute with good form. So making sure your core is contracted the entire time.
Awesome. Beautiful, man. Love it. You hit out on all the major points. I don't know if you said this or not, but I'm going to cover it anyway. Make sure their spine alignment is good when it comes to the neck. So a lot of times they'll be looking up or they're looking way down. Make sure that spine stays in line, okay? That's one point to watch for, but like you said, watch the hips. Another one to watch for is their elbows are way too far out or way too far in. Make sure they're right in line so they got a nice solid base and doesn't hit that rotator. Cool. Good job, man. All right. And then obviously plate loaded. With that one, just hit that mid back again, not the low back with the load. So a good job explaining. So like once you hit a minute, anywhere between a minute and minute 30, we want to progress them in the movement. We don't want trainers testing them for 5 minutes on a plank and wasting time. Okay. So good job there as well. All right. And then treadmill conditioning test. Brandon, what procedures there?
So this one I'm not like 100%. Like I know obviously what it tests. So
Sure.
Is this you just see how fast I can run in a quarter mile?
Yep. So you would select a quarter mile or half mile, depending on their ability level. You guys would decide that. And then they're going to record their time on how long it took them to complete that distance. Yep.
Okay.
And then their goal would be yeah, 10 to 5. Yep, correct. Yep. So test number 1, you guys are going to, the trainers are going to review it with their clients on how to go up on there, that they're going to complete this test on their own, make sure they're comfortable up there, make sure they got the speed down, elevation, all that kind of stuff. And then the client will record that when they're done with their session with their trainer. They'll actually go back and do the test on their own. Because we don't want to waste time having a trainer just stand there and watch, So we want to use that valuable time to maybe talk about goals, nutrition, anything like that, okay? So that's how that's conducted. They record the time, and we just try to beat it every time. Okay. Now you guys can modify that. Obviously, if someone has knee issues and they can't do treadmill, take them to a recumbent bike. That's more than fine. Okay. So once again, guys, these tests are modifiable. For the vast majority of people we work with, these are going to be more than fine, especially in the beginning. Okay. But if they get really advanced, or maybe you work in special population like an athlete, obviously you can modify. Okay. So maybe instead of a goblet squat, you do a back squat. Okay. Or a front squat, whatever you guys are thinking. Okay. Makes sense there? Cool, guys. Awesome. Nice job there. Okay, the next part of onboard number 2, what we do is we go over dynamic warm-up. Okay. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to have you guys explain to me first, why do we do dynamic warm-up? Why is it important? So I'm a member. I come up to you and say, hey, guys, why am I doing this dynamic warm-up? It's silly. Why don't I just go on the treadmill like I always do?
So it gets you ready for the movements that we're about to perform in our functional workout.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Anything else we want to hit on that really hits home and adds value?
It's gonna help. It's gonna help condition and warm up your body and really start activating the muscles. So when you're performing these exercises, one, they won't be as difficult, and two, you'll be at less risk for injury.
Beautiful. Yes. Okay. So if a member comes up and asks that, obviously they're still going to do a light warm up ahead of time, get the blood flowing a little bit. But these movements are really important because it's going to address mobility issues, address strength issues, and prepare their body more for exercise, like Al said. But also they're going to perform better in the movements too. Okay. Performance actually increases after a dynamic warm up because just between us, the neural system's firing better, right? We're not going to talk about like that to a member saying, well, your neural system's blah, blah, blah. They don't care about that, right? But what they need to know is how it benefits them. So as long as we present the value as a trainer, they should do it on their own. Okay. The problem we're seeing at some of the clubs right now is that the value is not presented, so people are just not doing it. Okay. When we tell them to do it on their own, when they're with the trainer, they're doing it. But when we say do it on their own, now it's all of a sudden they got all these excuses on why they can't do it. Okay. So that's something we're trying to tackle right now, is rebuilding that value and education, understanding of why they should be doing dynamic warm up on their own. So cool. Now what we're going to do is go through alternating knee hug. Okay, so what we're going to look at here is I want you guys to take me through each movement, explain it to me like I'm a member, so keep it simple, and then I want you to demonstrate the best to your ability as well. And then what I'll do is I'll go through regressions with you guys in case someone can't do the movement, so everyone's prepared. Okay, so Josh, why don't you take alternating knee hug for me, bud?
Okay. So with this, we're just standing in
Go
place.
ahead and demonstrate too, if you can there, bud. You can do it in place, just like you would with a member. Yep.
All right. So you're just gonna stand in place, just sideways,
Sure.
and you want to have good posture. You're just pulling one at a time, trying to pull your knee up and stretch.
Okay. Okay, cool. So when you guys are teaching dynamic warm-up, a good rule of thumb for you guys is teach from the toe up, okay? So even if you got an athlete who's someone who's well more aware of their body awareness than a general population, we still want to teach from the toe up because everyone learns better that way, okay? So what that does is it syncs everything in the mind of how they should operate going forward. If we start talking about knee, then toe, then chest, and head, their head's everywhere, right? They're all over the map. But if we talk from foot up, you explain it much more clearly. You make sure you hit all the major points. In addition, they learn better, okay? So when we do that knee hug, what we want to talk about is first, we want to talk about that toe. We want to have toe up, right? Too much in life, we're always doing plantar flexion, never get enough dorsey, okay? So when you explain it to a member, we want to make sure you have that toe up. Then you're going to bring your knee up. Then you're going to take your two hands, grab it by the knee, keeping your chest up, and then pull to the chest. And then we step, and then we alternate, okay? So all the major points are hit. They understand it more clearly now, and then they're going to get the movement a lot quicker as well, okay? Make sense?
Yep.
So I always try to hit those major points of contact there. All right, so when we do that, what is that stretching specifically? What are the primary stretchers here?
Hamstrings.
Yep, and so that's number 2. What's number 1 on this movement?
Glutes.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. Glutes primary, secondary is hamstring. Good job. All right, so let's say I'm a member and I am just unstable. I cannot do this movement for the life of me, okay? What would you guys do for a regression?
If they could do it on the floor.
Sure, yep. So that would be the last progression we go to, or regression, excuse me. But yeah, that's definitely a right answer. I would first take them to the wall first, so back against the wall. So now when they have support on the back, and now they can do this movement while still working on some stabilization. If they go to a wall and they're still unstable, then we're going to want to take them to the floor like Josh said, okay? And then work their way back up to the wall, and then eventually in free motion. Any questions on that? No? Okay, cool. All right, alternating toe touch. Brandon, I'm going to have you do that one for me, buddy.
All right. How's that? You see my toes?
Yeah, that's good enough. Yep.
Okay. So you're gonna stand up straight. Neutral spine. You're gonna step forward. You're gonna step forward with your foot, with your left foot. You're gonna bring your toe up. And you're just gonna reach down. And you're gonna touch your toe. Then you're just gonna alternate. So then you're gonna stand straight back up. Step forward with your toe. Keep your back straight as you can. With that toe. You grab that toe.
Okay, cool. So one major point with this one is we want to make sure we do opposite hand, opposite foot with this one. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right. So if we're doing it, toe up like you said, then we're gonna reach with this hand. Things to watch for is watch this knee. They like to bend it and then go down. So make sure this stays straight. Same thing with the chest. That one's a little harder to watch sometimes, but when they're doing it, their chest should be flat, right? This should be flat when they come down. They're not like arching and bending, okay? So you want flat chest, come down and touch, okay? So make sure to watch those major points there. When you guys do dynamic warm-up, the best bet is to go in the turf area and have them doing it walking, okay? So do a movement way down, on the way back, do another movement, okay? It's a little tight in there and there's too many people, you can do it stationary, okay? What is that stretching?
Hamstrings.
Your hamstrings and then your calves.
Yep, perfect, beautiful. Okay, cool. And then with this movement, let's say once again I'm unstable. What would you guys do for a regression of this movement?
Just bring their feet together and have them just do a normal toe touch and stretch.
No. Any other guess?
You do the wall again.
Yeah, yep. So go towards the wall. They'll do hip hinge against the wall, and then they get that stretch. Yep. So now they have somewhat of a support and anchor in their hip, and they can reach down. So good job. Also on this one, another major point we want to talk about is outside of the regression, their ability to do the stretch. Okay, so if they're going into the movement, and this is as far as they can get, is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, if it's as far as I can get.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it was a trick question. Yeah, good job, Brandon. Yep, if they're getting a stretch and they got good mechanics, yeah, that's more than fine. We'll work on their mobility as they go. So good job. I should say flexibility. All right, walking quad stretch. Al, take me through that one, buddy.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna stand on one foot. You're gonna try to keep your upper body posture as straight as possible. Just trying to keep your shoulders back. Take your opposite leg and reach your heel back towards the glutes and grab it with that same. You want to pull that heel towards the glutes for about 2 seconds, and then you're gonna release and switch and do the opposite leg as well.
Okay, cool.
Working your quad, or you're stretching your quads here.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, if you didn't get what that was stretching, we might have to have a longer talk. Because it's right in the name. So when we do this one, good job of explaining. You kind of broke down the major points there. Make sure that they're not let their knee come way out when they do this. So make sure they're not like out here pulling. Want to make sure it's tight to the body, okay, when they do it. Once again, same hand, same foot when they do this. Another key point, guys, is this right here. So we can do this in this little area. Get this chair out of the way. So when we do this one, another trick I want you guys to look at is when they do the stretch, we obviously want to keep alignment here, okay, in the foot. But one thing we want to do is actually get the hip flexor a little bit more. So a little trick is pull back just a little bit farther so you get a trace of that opposite leg from the side view. Now we're actually going to get a stretch of the hip flexor here if they're tight, okay? That's an important point because most people, general population, are tight there because they sit all day and they don't exercise. So what happens is their hamstring, excuse me, not their hamstring, their hip flexor is getting very tight. And if the hip flexor gets too tight, it's going to be impossible for them to have glute activation over time, okay? So it's called glute amnesia, okay? So we want to make sure is that they're getting that stretch there so they can actually activate the glute. Otherwise, it's impossible to do anything with the glute bridge, okay? All right, awesome. Good job. Once again, if we're unstable there, we can't do the movement, what would we do for a regression there?
Go to the wall. I mean.
Yep. Yep. All right, go to or something, get some support. Yep, perfect. Cool. All right, lateral squat. Let's go back to you, Josh.
Okay. So this you're you're just going to stand in place, about shoulder width apart, and then you're going to have chest out, and right squat back, and you're just going to step to the side. Step to the side and keep your other leg straight, and you'll feel that stretch on the inside of your leg. And then you'll repeat it for the other side.
Okay. Yep. So when we do this movement, guys, we want to get them into a solid base right away. Okay. So when we do it, we want a nice solid base here when they get into it. Then what we want to do is make sure they keep their toes straight, and you want them to teach them hip hinge. Okay. So we got to hinge at the hip, and then we put the load in the hip, not the knee. Okay. So with this movement, make sure that load goes to the hip, and then they focus on keeping that weight back here, not up here. Okay. Could you guys hear that okay when I was talking?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yep, so load goes to the hip. Keep that leg straight, like you said, and chest up. Biggest thing to watch for is the feet, guys. So when they're doing this movement, what's happening is their feet should be flat on the floor the entire time, and toes should be straight the entire time. What happens is when they're tight, a couple things might happen. One, their toe might start going out when they start doing the stretch. Okay, we want to make sure that toe stays straight ahead. The other thing is the foot might come up. Okay, what happens is that outside of the foot starts coming up. We want to make sure that stays planted so they get a good stretch in that groin region. Okay, their adductors. Okay, cool. So lots of major things to watch for there. The regression of this doesn't. What did we lose? You there, Brandon? Lost your camera for a second there. So for that one, no real regression because we have such a solid base already, okay? I think he's coming back now. Y is bent over. You want to take that one, Al?
Yeah. So I'll use your verbiage. Feet shoulder width apart. You want to hinge or kind of bend at the waist. You want to keep your chest out and your back flat so your spine is in line. Keep your head and neck nice and neutral. You're going to start with your sorry, I can't really see me, but I'm just going to bend down here. You're going to start with this is not great form because I'm bending down for the camera, but you're going to start with your hands in like a wide position and your thumbs up in the air, and then you're going to bring them down back to a normal position and then repeat. So keep going up and down.
Awesome, cool, yep. So good job in talking about the thumbs. That's a huge point, is we need to make sure the thumbs are up there the whole time. So we get into that athletic position, thumbs are up, and then we're going into that wide position, and then we're coming back down the center. We're going to a wide position, and then coming back down the center. Thumbs up the whole time, okay? Good job. So what is that doing for us?
Yes, I'm hitting like the anterior delts.
Yeah, shoulder mobility, right? It's also hitting upper back region too. So when we do that, sometimes it's going to be really hard for them to get in that athletic position. Another thing you might see is their thumbs moving when they're doing that movement, okay? They might start going in a little bit. That's another sign of tightness, okay? So for regression with this, what you want to do is you guys want to head to a bench, an incline bench, okay? So have that up at an incline. They're going to go backwards into that bench and lean into it like this, okay? Now what's happening is they can focus on that movement and not worry about the stabilization of everything else, okay? They can really work on that rotator work that need to be done. So honestly, a lot of people have to do that, especially dudes, because a lot of times guys, what they do is all they do is bench all day and do nothing pull-wise, right? So they have a huge issue with their rotators and everything because of that. Everything's pulling to the anterior. So that's going to give them issues here. So, I mean, hell, even linemen, we had to put on a bench half the time because they're so tight, okay? We got to make sure that they're getting that range of motion and working on those mechanics there, okay? So that would be how you regress that movement. All right, T's bent over. Josh, why don't you go over that one for me?
Yeah, that's basically just about the exact same thing as the Y, just a different angle.
Okay.
So always thumbs up. Or squat in good position, and then that one overhead.
Okay. Yep, good job talking about the thumbs up. What we want to do in that movement, though, guys, is we want to get in that same position here, and we actually want to go up like we did before. So now your thumbs are like this, okay? So the thumbs the whole time need to look like this as we go in that T position, and then we come back down. Go in the up position, come back down. What you guys want to watch for in this movement is their thumbs will start turning down as they go, okay? So as we're doing that movement, the thumbs start going down. That's another sign of tightness again that you want to address. So we want to regress them and go to the incline bench again to get that mobility, okay?
Why does it say raise arms overhead?
Because that's what you're doing. That's like the finished position right there.
Okay.
And then bodyweight squat, we're not going to talk about that because we already talked about squat mechanics and everything. Let's say someone cannot do the squat. What would you do for a regression for the warm-up?
Can you use like the wall, like you know, like we said with the stability ball? Well, no, that wouldn't make it look.
Yep, you could do stability ball wall squat. You could do a TRX squat. Those are all really good options to get them mobile. Okay, cool. Push-ups. Let's say they can't do a bodyweight push-up. What would you guys do for regression in the warm-up if they can't do it?
On a box or on
Sure.
Smith machine?
An incline push-up? Sure. Yep. Cool. Brandon, you still there with us, or is it just your camera that's not working?
And checked out.
Yeah, shows he's there, but he's like gone. All right. Group bridge. Al, just explain it to me. Obviously, I don't need you going on the floor for this one, but how would you explain it?
Yeah, so essentially what you're going to be doing is we're going to be activating our glutes. So we're going to keep our feet as flat as we can on the floor. We're going to start in almost laying down the floor, knees bent, heels closer towards our butt, and then further to start. Our arms flat. We're going to try to raise ourselves up to keep our, knees, hips, and shoulders in line. And at the top, we want to squeeze our glutes. That's
Perfect.
Best practice point.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect. You don't hit all the major points. Make sure they're getting all the way up in the air, guys. When they do that, they're going to stop raising up a little bit and come back down. They got to get full hip extension when they get up there. Okay. Also, another trick is drive the heels into the ground and toe up. That's going to activate more glute and hamstring. Okay. So try to make sure they do that as well. Okay.
And
all right, guys.
Flat.
What's that?
Hands flat.
Oh yeah, hands flat. Yep, and then the heel driven in the ground with toe up. Yep. Yep. Good question. Awesome. So that's mainly what we do every onboard. So there's usually probably about another 20, 30 minutes going over some details on the units they have at their facility. Because once again, I typically do this one-on-one with them. And if I can, I try to do it in person too. But it doesn't always work that way.
Do you have a list of regressions, kind of how you have this set up?
We do have, I think I do have some sort of like a progression regression sheet I can dig out for you guys. That's a good question. That's probably something I could work on and send to the team as a whole, you know. But very good question. But yeah, I'll look into that for you, man. So what we'll do next is what we're going to do is onboard number 3. So I'll see you guys for that. And that's where make sure you guys have your app downloaded, both of them, and you're comfortable with it. Have you guys done any practice with that yet?
I've played around with it a little bit, so.
Okay. How about you, Josh?
For which app are you talking about?
Both apps. Have you gone in there, played around with them a little bit, got set up on it?
Both the Anytime ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, cool. So at this point too, I kind of retouched with the trainers or MXM, like saying, hey, make sure you got that video watched, downloaded it, because next onboard we're going full detail into it. So we'll do that next time, guys. So appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, thank you.
Okay.